And so far this season, it feels like the rookie running backs are getting all the love and all the breakouts are happening. But man, Emeka Egbuka, again, it's like, can he really keep this up?
I'm not sure if he can, but I am sure that there is no way I can keep him out of my lineup right now.
Are you hinting at something maybe? Well, we'll talk about him. We'll talk about all the receivers you need to know about for week 6. This is start sit. We'll go through every match and tell you who should be in your lineup. This week we have 2 teams on bye. It's the Vikings and the Texans. So you're not going to have Justin Jefferson or Nico Collins. But these players are must starts regardless of matchup. It's Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Romo Dunze, and Emeka Egbuka. By the way, if you feel like you're getting value from our videos, you want to support this channel, help us out, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. We're on the road to 100K. Help us get there. First game of the week will be the Eagles taking on the Giants. All right, so the Eagles receivers, they complained. One of them was fed, and the other one, I don't know exactly how he's going to be feeling this week. So let's talk A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith against the Giants.
Well, hear me out here. I actually really like A.J. Brown this week. Like, Giants play 42% man. They also play 37% cover one. You look at A.J. Brown against man coverage, 1.26 yards per out run versus zone, 2.4 against man. Cover one, he has a 2.95 yards per out run versus cover one. He's good against these defenses. Like, the way the Giants defend, he's great against them. It's not like he's not getting the targets. The targets are there, and I do worry that, like in this game, after last week where they barely ran the football and they lost, do they just go back to hammering Saquon against the Giants? But that being said, I think this might actually be a good A.J. Brown game. I'm going to say solid, but risky solid. And then Devonta Smith, I'll say just a flex still, but a good flex.
Yeah, look, the concern last week was the Surtain shadow and the tough defense. And so predictably, A.J. Brown didn't have the big game. Here it is. I think this is it. I'm going to not go crazy. Look, he's still just solid, but high-end solid. For the most part, I don't want to miss out on that squeaky wheel game. I feel like this could be it. I mean, come on. They're going to really have a lot of pressure against the Giants here. And look, at last year against the Giants, which is largely the same defensive team, in the one game he was active, 5 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. I'm not worried here. I am going to fire up A.J. Brown in most situations. Devonta Smith is still a pretty good pick, but let's put him as a flex. And with the Giants, I mean, we're going to be left with hardly anybody on this wide receiver squad. Darius Slayton also left last week with a hamstring. We already know Neighbors is out. So, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson are bust pretty much.
Against the Eagles, I'm going to go with bust. No, thank you.
Yeah, the targets could be there, but again, we've seen Wan'Dale Robinson as one of those guys who could catch like 7 passes and somehow still go under 50 yards. Let's just sit him. This week's London game is going to feature the Broncos at the Jets. Apologies to the fans in London for having to see the New York Jets, but the Broncos coming off a huge win against Philly, and you got Cortland Sutton, still Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims. It looks like this is still pretty much a one-man show, at least for fantasy.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton, I know it's Jets, it's Sauce. I don't even care. I don't even care what the matchup is. Cortland Sutton is proven he is matchup proof. Solid, definitely solid this week. Franklin, Mims, no thanks.
Yeah, maybe the only concern with Sutton is he doesn't need to get targeted as much because maybe there's just not much of a fight here. The Broncos just don't have to pass, but still, yeah, Sutton is one of those almost set and forget. Not the highest ceiling because, yeah, Sauce Gardner is on the other side. But look, the only really shut down corner in the league that would say, okay, I'm going to move off of this player is already on the Broncos side, and that's Pat Surtain. So, yeah, just fire up Sutton. Don't really bother with the other Broncos receivers. And for the Jets side, I mean, there's still only one receiver to talk about. We're just moving Garrett Wilson into must-start territory. If you got him, keep him in. All right, now we're going to get into the main early slate for Sunday. First, a reminder, by the way, it's week 6. It's also Boostober for Underdog. That's right, you're getting profit boosts almost every day this month. And if you're a new customer, if you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it. Sign up using code ENDGAME. You get a gimme pick that's Jalen Hurts on Thursday, just getting a yard. You get the free pick. You also get still up to $1,000 of bonus cash when you first sign up using code ENDGAME. And new customers, when you first play $5 towards any pick, you get an extra $100 in bonus funds. Seahawks are going to take on the Jaguars in week 6, and JSN is still absolutely a must start. As far as the other Seahawks receivers, probably not so much.
No, Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton. I mean, they're out there. They could do a little something, but do I really want to start these guys? No, I don't.
Horton did score a touchdown again, but it feels like that's all you're hoping for, right? He is pretty touchdown dependent. There's plenty of other receivers who could do that and offer you more. And so, look, this Jaguars defense is starting to look legit. They still give up some yardage to receivers, but it's just not enough here. Now, as far as the Jaguars receivers, this has been a source of frustration so far all season. Brian Thomas Jr., again, it's like a little better, slightly encouraging. I mean, you can't call him a bust yet, but you don't feel great if you've got him on your team, right? And then I feel like say the exact same thing for Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter, you certainly don't feel great, but he's kind of showing some signs the last 2 weeks. And look, the Seahawks are a bit of a pass funnel defense here, like really good against the run, not so good against the pass. So I think you can flex Travis Hunter. I'll say for BTJ, kind of like what I said with AJ Brown, I kind of like BTJ this week. I can't go crazy here, but you look at the Seahawks, they run cover 4 22% of the time. His targets per out run go from 0.22 way up to 0.38 versus cover 4. So this could be a good BTJ week. Finally, not ready to go all in. I'll say solid, but risky solid.
Let me just say, I feel like it's a mystery to me how the Jaguars seem to be winning games and scoring points, and that every week I look at Trevor Lawrence's stat line and like, man, he was bad. He wasn't that good. And I'm like, how are they doing this? I don't know. And the same goes for the receivers. So, look, I still don't feel good enough to say I definitely want to start BTJ. Sure, he's still got it in there, but I think he's still just a flex here. And then Travis Hunter, it's just not enough. I feel like he's also touchdown or big play dependent. So, I mean, he could be a risky upside flex, but in this matchup here against the Seahawks, I think I'm going to lean towards just sitting.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, DraftLane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download DraftLane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
Next up, let's talk Chargers and Dolphins. All right, so this Chargers offense, especially the pass offense, is starting to slowly take some steps backwards. Got to wonder if those O-line issues are starting to creep up. But with Amari Hampton out, are they just going to have to lean on Justin Herbert's arm more?
You would think so. And yeah, the offensive line, I mentioned it like a couple weeks ago on the panic video after Joe Alt got hurt. Like, hey, I'm not ready to panic on Herbert yet, but I'm getting pretty nervous. Well, I'm definitely getting nervous now. This offensive line is terrible, but it's the Dolphins. Like, I'm not worried about it. This is about as good of a get-right spot as this offense could get. Look, at this point, we finally saw Ladd be like the top scorer here, so I'm just going to say all three of these guys are solid. If you got one of them, you probably want them in your lineup this week.
Yeah, it's partly because it's hard to tell, right, who's going to separate from the pack, if anyone. Last week it was Ladd scoring and not Keenan or QJ, but it could be the other way. I'll just say this, all solid because they're all good enough options to keep in there, but I don't necessarily feel like any one of them stands out. And the Dolphins, as bad as they've been, they haven't allowed a single 100-yard receiver this season. In fact, the season high has been 82 yards by Garrett Wilson. And, a lot of that was on that very final, drive there where the Jets scored a garbage time touchdown. But I think they're all good options. Don't know if any of them are going to smash. And for the Dolphins, and this looks like it's pretty much all Jalen Waddle. We knew he would get a bump, with Tyreek Hill out. He seems to be the only guy of relevance here. Malik Washington, how do you catch, 4 passes and still somehow get 0 yards?
Yeah, look, if you wasted a waiver wire pick or fab on Malik Washington, I got really bad news for you. I mean, he didn't even run the second most routes. That was Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. He was third in routes, and his ADOT was 4.6. Like, this guy's going to be one of these guys that has to take a screen to the house or something. Like, yeah, it might have been a wasted pick here. But, you got to feel good about Jalen Waddle. Sure, this is a tough matchup. The Chargers do have a good defense here, but he's clearly the number one guy here, no doubt about it, and we know he has upside. He's got to be solid.
Got to be at least solid. One of these days, maybe it's a very favorable matchup, we can go higher. Usually a guy with the kind of target share and the kind of talent that he has, you'd feel better about. But again, this Dolphins offense as a whole has limitations. So just keep him at solid. Rams taking on the Ravens this week. You know you're starting Puka, and you're loving it if you have him. It almost feels like there's no doubt you should start Devontae Adams. This Ravens defense looks like it's on its way to being historically bad.
Yeah, it looks historically bad. You know, Devontae Adams, because I was doing research today for the Buy Low video, he's got 9 end zone targets, which is insane. Only 1 less than George Pickens this year, or 2 less than George Pickens. Like, this guy could score a touchdown literally every single game. And against the Ravens, who just gave up 2 touchdowns to Xavier Hutchinson, a touchdown to Jalen Noel, touchdown to Nico Collins, how do you not start Devontae Adams this week? Strong start.
Yeah, there's almost no way you don't start Devontae Adams. Got to feel great about him. So he's definitely a strong start. Now, not so much on the other side. Zay Flowers still came away with it, at least something last week. But man, legitimate concerns. Is this Ravens offense going to be as bad as their defense is?
Until Lamar Jackson comes back, probably, which hopefully will be after the bye. So only 1 more week of this Cooper Rush nonsense. But look, garbage time counts, right? Garbage time still counts. They're probably going to be in garbage time again this week. So Zay Flowers, I can't get too crazy here. I'm going to say solid, but risky solid. Like, hopefully you have better options.
I'm going to knock him down to the flex range because, yeah, garbage time, and they still look like garbage pretty much here, Cooper Rush. But what happened? He was decent with Dallas. It looks like he hasn't picked up this offense. With Zay Flowers, even with Lamar, there's risk. He has those down games. I'm not feeling it here, so you could flex him, but hopefully you've got more upside elsewhere. All right, now let's talk Cardinals at Colts. And pretty much just Marvin Harrison still for Arizona. He's one of those interesting players. Right? You always feel like there should be so much more, and yet it's not there. Man, as bad as the Cardinals were last week, losing to the Titans can't make you feel better.
Can't make you feel better, but you know the Colts are not necessarily like a shutdown defense against wide receivers. But what was weird about that game, like he had that big long catch at the beginning of the game where it's like, okay, first of all, how was that pass even completed? Then he like disappeared. He only had 3 catches the rest of the game. And this is what's weird. Like he just disappears for long stretches of the game. But I do wonder if maybe they're going to be kind of in come from behind mode against this good Colts offense, which is crazy to say, but they have a good offense. So I'm going to say Harrison's solid this week. But again, risky solid because he may just disappear.
Yeah, I think you nailed it here because they were, until the very end of the fourth quarter, they wound up falling behind at the last second. They were, front runners last week. They were able to feed Michael Carter and run the ball. And this week, it'll probably be a different story. So I can never feel great about this Cardinals offense and even a guy like Harrison. But this week, he should be at least solid. The targets will be there. Now, we definitely can feel great about this Colts offense. I mean, they're just rolling along here. And Michael Pittman specifically, he's scored now in 4 of 5 games this season. The rest of the receivers, it's kind of hard to figure out. Alec Pierce has been out. Josh Downs finally took a step up last week. I mean, do you have any interest in Downs?
No interest in Downs unless maybe Alec Pierce is out again and they're going to punish A.D. Mitchell again, like last week where he didn't come in until the end of the game when it was Anthony Richardson time. Yeah, what's the upside for Josh Downs here? It's like touchdown or bust, right? I mean, maybe it gives you an okay floor if those guys are out, but I'd rather not. I will say you got to like Pittman this week. Cardinals have not been good against wide receivers. Calvin Ridley somehow just was revived against the Cardinals. They're down a bunch of key starters in that secondary. Pittman's got to be solid.
Yeah, Pittman feels like he's going to be pretty solid most every week. Nothing to be scared of in this matchup. As far as Downs, I didn't mention him as a waiver wire pickup because, like I said, even though there were 8 targets, it's just not big yardage there. He's not having significant fantasy games, but also, like I said, Pierce will probably be back. Mitchell will probably actually play again. It's just not enough here, so I don't think you have to consider Downs. Now we got the Cowboys taking on the Panthers. All right, so George Pickens, he's looking like a number 1 receiver, and it's going to be hard to keep him out of your lineup. Is there any reason you would even think about doing it? But I think I also now need to ask you about Ryan Flournoy, who had a 100-yard game.
I'm not chasing that. Let's just move on from that. George Pickens, I think, got to be high-end solid here. You look at the Panthers. They run the third most cover 3 in the league 42% of the time. His targets per route run goes from 0.16 against non-cover 3 to 0.25 versus cover 3. Yeah, how do you really bench Pickens? Very, very solid start this week.
Getting a ton of targets. He has that touchdown upside. 5 TDs just in the last 4 games. He's got that big playability. As always, 15.5 yards per reception still in this Cowboys offense. How can you not start Pickens? I'm just going to keep him as strong. I mean, I feel like he's, like we mentioned with Sutton earlier, just don't worry that much about the matchup. As far as the other Cowboys receivers, I will just say this. We feel like every week, right, there's a different guy who kind of pops up. It was Tolbert, remember, a week ago, and he disappeared. A couple of weeks ago before that, it was Kevontae Turpin. You don't get too caught up in all that. Ferguson is still the number 2 guy here. And then for Carolina, all right, we know the rookie Tet McMillan is the number 1 player there, but where is that breakout game? Like, when is it going to happen? Could it come against this Cowboys pretty rough secondary?
It certainly could. I mean, they're allowing the most points to wide receivers right now. Could this finally be the week? Like, it was really frustrating. Like, Xavier Legette comes back and he gets a touch. Can we get Ted McMillan a touchdown, please? It's not like the opportunities aren't there. The opportunities are there. I'm sure if you got Ted, you're probably frustrated right now, but he still is giving you a high floor at least every week. And I think in this matchup, he's got plenty of upside. So I'm going to say high-end solid this week.
Yeah, I know. I feel like this could be the week, right? Maybe finally hits pay dirt. Maybe finally has that big game. It's hard to count on that and say it's going to happen when we haven't seen it. And we haven't seen it at all from him in the NFL yet. It's still early, but this could be the week. All right, so let's say very solid pick. As far as Legette goes, I mean, it was a touchdown, but other than that, he hardly did anything. Only 2 catches. I still need to see a lot more. And I liked him preseason, but this Carolina offense is kind of hard to predict in terms of the passing game. Now let's talk New England, New Orleans. All right, so as far as the Patriots go, now all of a sudden this is becoming a one-man show. It's all Stephon Diggs. Is he back?
He looks back. He looks fully healthy. He looks good. I mean, I know it's not the Bills this week, so he might not be quite as motivated, but he looked good the week before, too. How do you bench Stephon Diggs? He's got to be solid at least this week.
Yeah, it's not a revenge game like last week, but it's even better. It's the Saints, right? This is not a good secondary. They're still giving up a ton of points to wide receivers, even though, let's face it, most teams don't really have to pass against them. Yeah, Diggs is looking not quite like vintage Diggs, but pretty close. So I think I'm going to put him, like I should have put last week, was feeling a big game. I'm going to say he's a strong start here. Now on the Saints side, got Chris Olave, got Rashid Shaheed, came out with a big game last week. You feeling anything from these guys against New England?
I think you got to feel pretty good here. The Patriots are a bit of a pass funnel defense here. 4th toughest versus the run, but 5th worst versus the pass. Chris Olave just feels solid pretty much every single week. And look, I said on the Sunday stream, I said, look, I think Rashid Shaheed is going to have a sneaky big game this week, and he did. But I don't feel quite as good about him this week. He's a flex with upside.
Yeah, I'm with you on both counts. Olave, always solid, getting that target share. Shaheed, we know that he's going to be the number 2 guy here. Nobody else is really involved. I mean, hardly any targets. And we've seen Juwan Johnson, the tight end, slowly take a step back here in terms of his target share, which means more for the wide receivers. All right, now we got the Browns at the Steelers. Well, as far as receivers go, we can probably get through this one pretty quickly. All right, new quarterback, Dylan Gabriel for Cleveland. Didn't help the wide receivers. It did help the tight ends, but like Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Bonds, any interest?
I mean, there's no way I'm starting Jerry Jeudy. Like this guy's looking like the Jerry Jeudy we remember pre-Jameis Winston. I will say Isaiah Bond, I can at least flex him. I mean, Dylan Gabriel does not have a good deep ball here, so don't expect huge chunk plays, but he was second on the team in targets. It looks like maybe he's the wide receiver to prefer, so if you want to, you can flex him, but he's not very exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there's no ceiling here. None of these guys are getting deep shots, because I don't think anybody is getting those deep shots in this offense. It's going to be a lot of dink and dunks. It's going to be conservative still, so I'm not starting any Cleveland Browns wide receiver. And the only Steelers receiver really worth talking about is DK Metcalf. Calvin Austin, if he plays, might be a consideration, but that shoulder injury sounded pretty serious, so I don't expect it. Well, what do you expect from DK against the Browns?
I don't expect a lot from DK against the Browns, to be honest. This is a good defense. They play the most cover one of any team in the NFL. His yards per route run go from 2.99 against all other coverages to 1 versus cover one. He's going to need a touchdown this week. And I will say, if Calvin Austin somehow plays, I actually like him more than DK Metcalf. Yes, I like him more than DK Metcalf because his yards per route run goes from 1.19 to 2.55 against cover one. But both these guys just flexes. DK of risky flex.
We know what's crazy is that on the season so far, Calvin Austin is 4th in total air yard share for his team. He's the one who gets, talk about deep shots. Yeah, he gets them. I just don't feel he'll be out there at all to do it. And so I think it's just very risky from that standpoint. I would rather just sit him even if he does go. And then DK, either way. Look, actually, I'll say this. If Calvin Austin doesn't play, I think DK should be solid because all those air yards and the targets, it's going to be there for him. So this kind of depends a little bit on the Austin situation, but DK has been productive pretty much every week so far this season. I think he should be solid. My Titans at Raiders, maybe not the most exciting game on the slate, but there's some still fantasy relevant players here. And how about Calvin Ridley? Revived his own relevance. He just when you left him for dead, at least you wanted to. Here we go. Is this now the revival of Calvin Ridley? Is he back?
I sure hope so, but I still have my doubts here. But I will say this, look, it's a good matchup against the Raiders. They run the most cover 3 of any team. 52% of the time they run cover 3. His targets per route run goes from 0.22 to 0.26 versus cover 3. Not a huge difference, but it does help. So I'm going to say flex, but maybe a good flex this week because of the matchup. And this is touchdown or bust, I feel like.
They figured out they still need Ridley, and, even though he did actually come up with big yardage, a lot of it in those deep chunk plays, he still didn't catch a lot of his targets. There's still some sort of a disconnect here, but look, at least he's been out there getting targeted heavily, and it's the Raiders, so I'll say he's flex-worthy. I think Io Manor is also still flex-worthy because he does have touchdown upside. He took a step back because they were trying to kind of force Ridley to be involved, and it sort of worked, but I think Io Manor will still have some relevance. Like, I was going the opposite way. It's hard to say that you really want to start Jacoby Myers or Trey Tucker for that matter, because if you watch Geno Smith play, that's not exactly very inspiring to you.
It's what's the opposite of inspiring? Like, it makes me want to turn the TV off, honestly. But look, it's a good matchup against the Titans, but I can't say these guys are anything more than flexes until we see Geno not be a pumpkin anymore. I will say though, this is actually kind of a good spot for Geno because the way the Titans, their coverage, but I still can't feel good about these guys, just flexes.
Yeah, I was probably too generous for Jacoby last week because, I thought Geno will get better. I barely was any better. He just looks lost here. And so I don't know what the fix is. Are we really going to see Kenny Pickett? Is that the answer? I don't know. But right now, I think Jacoby's barely a flex, a low ceiling flex, and I can do without Trey Tucker. 49ers taking on the Buccaneers this week. That's right. You've got Emeka Egbuka. Just don't question it. Put him in your lineup and take what you get because it's been pretty good every single week. Now, what are we going to get from the 49ers? And by that, I mean, who's actually going to be playing wide receiver this week?
Yeah, this is always going to be the great mystery. Who knows? Let's just go through it. Let's say if the Bucs are a bit of a pass funnel, right? They're very strong against the run. I know they're not the weakest pass defense here, but Sam Darnold and the Seahawks just had a nice game against them. So I'll say if Jennings and or Pearsall play this week, you should feel pretty good about them. They should both be solid starts. Then if they're both out again, I think Kendrick Bourne probably at least worth a flex after what he did last week.
All right. I'm not going to take this time to air my frustrations with the 49ers in general, but look, let's just say this. Injury risk aside, right? Not knowing Jennings, Pearsall, who's going to play. Yes, Tampa Bay does give a lot more up to the pass versus the run, but they actually are very stingy against wide receivers specifically. I mean, so far this season, they've held guys like Drake London, Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith in check. I mean, really, these guys had bad games. And so Jennings, Pearsall, Bourne, whoever it is, I'm going to say just flex. And oh yeah, the Bucs do have another receiver. His name is Chris Godwin. Look, he's out there. He is getting healthier. I can't say he's fully back. And so what do you do with Godwin?
Yeah, I think it's still too soon here for Godwin. I mean, we saw other guys get involved. Sterling Shepard score. Like, we got to give him a little time coming off a serious injury. So hold him, but don't start him.
Right. And with the guy who missed so much time, but also had multiple injuries that were significant, it's going to be a couple weeks till he's actually anything close to 100%. And so, yeah, this is, I feel like, still a nice buy low opportunity for Godwin, but he's more of just a stash until further notice. All right, now, here's an interesting one. We've got the Bengals at the Packers, and you might think, well, this sounds like kind of a mismatch the way these two teams have been playing. And look, on the one hand, Jamar Chase just had a big game. T. Higgins actually scored a touchdown. But everything has changed because just when you thought maybe Jake Browning is turning a corner, just kidding, nobody thought that. Look, they've got a new quarterback in town, an old quarterback. It's Joe Flacco. Seriously, check the news. They got Joe Flacco. I'm not sure what to make of this, Chris. I'm confused, but what does this mean for Chase and Higgins?
Yeah, this is obviously desperation, right? This is like, we need to do something here. I'm not sure Joe Flacco is the answer, and honestly, I mean, are they going to start Joe Flacco this week? With only being there for 5 days? I mean, I guess so. Why else are you trading for him? Look, there's a part of me that thinks this might actually be good for Chase and Higgins, because I don't think Flacco is any good or any better than Jake Browning, honestly, but I think Flacco will at least throw it to these guys more, so maybe it's good. I will say the matchup here, like, you think, okay, Packers, tough defense, but they play cover 3 37% of the time, which is 6th most in the league. Jamar Chase, 0.23 targets per route run against all other coverages, 0.38 versus cover 3, so even with Flacco, or if it's Browning, whoever it is, I think Chase is still solid, maybe like risky solid. And look, if it's Flacco, I might actually consider Higgins as a flex.
Yeah, one thing we know about Flacco still is he prefers to throw it to his wide receivers, even when he shouldn't. And look, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, that's not Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. So we can't just say, well, look at, these guys didn't do a whole lot the first couple weeks. This is not the same situation here. This is obviously not the solution, but I guess it can't be worse than Browning. I mean, honestly, it can't be. All of Browning's stats from last week, it was all purely come from behind garbage time, and a lot of Chase's was too, but still, this is why. The week before, Chase didn't do anything, but I'm like, I don't want to just keep Chase on my bench because that could happen. And of course, this week, I was like, I still want Chase in my lineup, and if you kept chasing your lineup, you're glad you did. So I think he's at least solid. You cannot love the matchup here on the road to Green Bay, and you can't love Flacco as the quarterback. I still can't put Chase lower than the solid tier. I can sit T. Higgins. Look, I'm worried enough in this matchup that I'm not chasing just that random touchdown. So do you want to start any of these Packers receivers? Because this Bengals defense, news alert, still bad.
Yeah, still bad, so you probably do want to start him, but I'm just going to say Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, just flexes here because, like, I know before the bye, Doubs had 3 touchdowns. Everybody's going to be like, how do you not start this guy? Like, okay, he does this once or twice a year. He has these random big games, and then he goes back to just being, like, okay. But it is a good matchup, so you can flex either of them.
Yeah, it was going to be interesting to see who feasted in that previous game when the Packers played before the bye in that great matchup, but it was Doubs. This kind of proved to me that it's still not there yet with Golden. Golden is getting separation, right? He's effective. He just doesn't have that trust yet from Jordan Love. I'm going to say not because of the 3 touchdown game, but because of his involvement, his role in this offense and the Bengals defense. I think Doubs can be a solid play again this week. We know he's always got the chance to score at least 1 touchdown. And I think Golden could be a flex. On Sunday night, we're treated to the Lions taking on the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. Like, you got to start Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know this. I think you just got to sit Jameson Williams, right? What is going on here?
I don't know what's going on, but you have to sit him. 1 target? Like, come on. We've only seen 1 game where this guy's even been a part of the offense. You have to sit Jameson Williams. What a bust.
Now, as far as the Chiefs go, did see Xavier Worthy back. Decent output. Tyquan Thornton still somehow leading the way in terms of receiving yardage. We still have another week until Rashee Rice comes back. So for now, what do you expect out of this receiver room?
Well, I feel really good about Xavier Worthy this week. The Lions run the 3rd most single high 62% of the time. You look at his targets per route run, 0.17 versus 2 high, 0.5 versus single high. That means half the time he runs a route, he's getting targeted against single high. I think this is going to be a great Xavier Worthy game. I think you got to fire him up. High-end solid start. I'll say Thornton, he's that dice roll, big play flex. He could do it, or he could absolutely kill you. And then Hollywood, I mean, come on, what's the ceiling here? I'm going to sit Hollywood.
I'll agree. Hollywood's still a sit. And Thornton keeps doing it. It's not every week that you're going to get those big plays down the field, but they're going to him over and over again. He's still going to be a high upside flex with risk, granted. And then Xavier Worthy, you definitely got to feel better about him getting that target share, at least until Rice comes back. For now, he's solid. Then the first of 2 Monday night games is going to be the Bills taking on the Falcons. All right, so we know how the Bills roll. Several receivers are somewhat involved. Let's talk about Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, probably the only ones that actually matter.
Yeah, I like Khalil Shakir this week. I talked about the single high with Worthy. The Falcons actually play the most single high. 68% of the time, his targets per out run rate goes from 0.16 to 0.24 versus single high. I think this is going to be a nice Shakir game. I think he's going to be solid. Keon Coleman, I mean, if you want to flex him, you can, but this is touchdown or bust.
No, I still don't want to flex Keon Coleman. I can sit him in favor of someone who gets steady targets. And then Shakir, agree, he's absolutely solid. Most weeks he's solid anyways, and this matchup should be a pretty good one for him. Only concern is Dalton Kincaid now feels like he actually is emerging as one of their top targets. And so, that just kind of keeps a cap on Shakir's upside. All right, so now coming off their bye, what are the Falcons going to do? We saw Drake London have that bounce back game. Do you feel like he keeps it going here?
I think he'll be good. I mean, they're at home. That helps. But, Bills worse against the run than the pass. I do worry maybe this is a game where they don't have to throw it a ton. It's not like the Bills offense has been like scoring crazy amount of points lately anyway. So I'm going to say Drake London solid this week.
Well, I really feel like the first couple of weeks with his mediocre results, kind of a result of, remember that week 1 shoulder injury he had. He was still playing, but maybe he wasn't 100%. Penix had a really bad game. And I think what we're going to see from now on is London pretty much dominating targets. He's a dominant receiver anyways. They're going to have to pass the ball plenty to keep up with Buffalo. So I think he's strong. If I have London, no questions asked, I'm starting him. Darnell Mooney seems just kind of like a desperation flex. And then the week will end with the Bears at the Commanders. All right, Bears also coming off of their bye week. What do we see from Caleb Williams and gang here? And Rome Odunze, yeah, you're starting him, right? No questions. But what about DJ Moore? Got plenty of questions there.
Yeah, you got plenty of questions. I mean, this is a good matchup against this Commanders secondary, but how good can you really feel? You can flex him because it is a good matchup, but that's as high as I can go.
Very nervous if you got DJ Moore. Is it ever going to change? I don't know if it is. I think he's kind of a low ceiling flex here, even against not so great Commanders defense. And as far as the Commanders go, we're still waiting. I'm still waiting for Terry to play and to do something. So is this the week he comes back? Of course, don't know right now. And if so, how good do you feel about him? And then that obviously affects Debo.
Yeah, I'll say if Terry plays this week, I think he's got to be solid. It's the Bears. I'm not going to be scared of the Bears here. If Terry's out again, then I'll say Debo is solid because, again, he's the number 1 wide receiver, and it's the Bears. You got to feel pretty good about him. Luke McCaffrey, I think either way is just a risky flex.
Yeah, look, so if Terry plays, which, again, I still have my doubts here. It didn't seem like he's on the way to returning, but, let's see. If he does play, I think we can consider him solid. This Bears defense, not so great. If Terry is out, I'm going to go all the way. Look, this is partly kind of reeling back my doubt of Debo in the preseason, but he has looked good. He actually looks, watching him out there, he looks like vintage Debo. All right, so my doubts have been erased. His role in this offense, if Terry's out, I think he's a strong start. Those are all the wide receivers you need to know about for week 6. Don't forget, we got you covered at every other position. It's all in this week's playlist.